This week on Merchants of Change, we've got Ryan Baker. Ryan had a great hockey career at Elmira College before starting his sales career at EMC. Ryan is currently the VP of Sales, US East and Canada at Rubrik, where they sell data security solutions to some of the largest companies in the world. Here he is, Ryan Baker. I'm J.R. Butler, co-founder of the Shift Group, and you're listening to Merchants of Change. This is a podcast about transferring the skills and behaviors we acquire as athletes into being a professional technology salesperson. Each week, we'll introduce you to a top performer who will help us understand how they became professional merchants of change. What's up, kid? How we doing, Bakes?
How are you, buddy?
Thanks for coming on the show, man. I'm pumped. Today we got Ryan Baker. So, Ryan, I know you've listened to a few shows. It's gonna be hard for me to call you Ryan, but I will. For context, right? Our listening audience is really, new sellers and people considering a career shift into sales. Obviously, our candidates, athletes, and veterans. But other people are listening in too, and we've been helping a lot of athletes kind of transition into sales. So we like to get guys like you that had success in sports and then success in sales, and we always like to start at the beginning, which is with the sports career. So this is a very broad question by design, but I want to know, if I ask you what are your favorite memories from hockey, what's the first things that pop into your head?
Oh, it's crazy, man. Good question. Probably, honestly, my favorite memories is, as childish as this sounds, is skating all day on the rink in my backyard that my old man made me, right? I actually have it in my backyard now. The kids have seen about an hour of total ice on it with their winter we've had in Boston. But honestly, man, going out, shoveling it with the dad, shoveling it with my old man, and then skating all day until my toes froze off and my mom would call me in, and doing the same thing at the local ponds. I feel like that's not as frequent as it used to be, but that's honestly my favorite memory as a child, and in all of sports is probably doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely gone away. It's a lot more, kids are playing for 4 teams and they're playing too many games. So that part is that's the fun right there, man. You hit the nail on the head. So you played at Elmira. When you look back at some of your favorite teammates from your playing days at Elmira Bakes, what are some of the traits and characteristics that you think of?
What was good about going there is it was right up near the Canadian border, so I got to make a bunch of really good friends from primarily Canada. There weren't a lot of guys from the States on the team, honestly, but the traits are all very consistent across all of the friendships we built and all the teammates, right? We're all at a high-end D3 school because, at the time we played, a lot of those guys played D1 probably. Did they want to be 4th, 5th line, in and out of the lineup guys? No, not really. So it was the love and passion for what we were there to do, but it was also, we treated it like it was our job, right? You show up day one at college, you're right into dry land and in training camp right away, right? So it was the love, the passion for the sport, the dedication to be really good at it. Because Butts, it's a full-time job when you're in school, right? Yeah, you're going to have your fun, but when you're playing a sport and doing the academics, it's the dedication of why we're all there and really wanting to win, right? A national championship is all we talked about from the first day of Dryland, and that dedication and focus on the goal was honestly it was universal across everybody on the team.
It's the foundation why so many athletes go on to be successful because of that. There's the focus, the discipline, just the time management alone. I don't think people quite realize how hard it is to be an athlete and a student, right? And it's so true. I'm curious to know, other than the fact that you have an NHL shot, what other character, how would your teammates describe you, you think?
Hated the defensive zone. Hated it. Needed a roadmap in the D zone. I love to play physical. I love to just turn up the tenacity and get guys going whenever possible. And then I think it was I had an issue with never quitting, meaning like you probably go too hard in practice, probably, hit people harder than you should in practice that you don't have to. It's just, I don't know, it's in my DNA. And then in shooting the puck, I love shooting the puck. But it was like, I hated losing, dude. I still hate losing. We do some of the biggest deals in my region now. The wins are cool for, about a second, but when we lose one, it like sits with me. That frustrates me more than anything.
I think the fear of failure isn't talked about enough that athletes bring to the team. Like, everybody loves to win, right? No, there's not a person in the world that doesn't want to ring the bell. The difference between like good and great is like the people that absolutely, it keeps them up at night, the thought of not winning. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's honestly, I think I talked to some of your team about this earlier, and I talked to my team about it. We've went from 45 sellers to 76 sellers in the past 9 months in my region, right? So, and we're doing that honestly for better account coverage, because what we do is very differentiated. But the thing that keeps me up at night is someone spending money with a legacy incumbent or someone other than Rubric, and then we weren't even at the fight. We weren't even in the batter's box taking a swing. Our account coverage and the reason we're scaling is because there's so much opportunity. And honestly, my fear of failure is missing out on deals that we didn't even know were happening.
Right. Yeah. That pit in your stomach is, I mean, that's why you've had the success you have. What's your, like, in your opinion, your biggest accomplishment that you're most proud of from hockey? And then we'll get into the transition stuff.
Honestly, the biggest accomplishment hockey-wise, and I stress this with my kids, is the family that we're all part of. And I know you feel this too. Again, that sounds a little bit corny, but like no matter where you go, you can run into someone who's a hockey guy or a hockey girl. And that translates across my career more than I ever thought it would. Honestly, I got my start at EMC in 2004 because my high school hockey coach knew a guy at EMC and made an intro. Most of my best champions and accounts that I've sold into for almost 20 years now, there's some tie back to hockey. Either their kids play or they play. There's something there. So like accomplishment-wise, it's not really anything personal. It's really being part of something that's bigger and something that'll last forever. And that network is something that I take a lot of value in because they end up being your best people I trust the most. And they're just, overall, it's a really good family to be part of.
So true. I remember when I was visiting schools and I was stressing out, my dad goes, JR, it doesn't matter. The second you walk on campus, whether it's Fitchburg State or West Point or Holy Cross, you're gonna have 23 best friends the second you walk on. And it so rings true even when you're done. Like, that connection is so strong. So dude, you're buzzing around the rink at Elmira, and you just can't wait to sell technology, right? How did you end up in sales? Was there other things that you considered?
Yeah, I considered going back and being a plumber with my old man. That was honestly the number one thing. It was a little bit of that, hey, I should take over what my dad built from the start, and then there's times since then I kick myself because those trades aren't going anywhere and people are making a lot of money. So there's times when I'm like, should I have done that? Honestly, dude, senior year coming out of Elmira, it was like I had a cup of coffee. I played literally one game in the U-Haul back in the day. Made $75. I saw guys, there was probably 6 fights that game. Could you go to training camp? Maybe. Do I want to do that in my life when I'm graduating at 23 years old? I don't know. So I called that hockey coach I referred to previously, and he's like, have you ever heard of this company, EMC? But I could barely send email and turn on my desktop computer at the time, right? We're talking AOL Instant Messenger days, dial-up modems. I'm dating myself, but like, it I wasn't bleeding edge technically. So didn't know what I was doing. I heard people were making a lot of money. I heard it was a sales job, which I ultimately wanted to try out because I think that's, that was something that always interested me. I was a marketing and management double major in school, so not necessarily sales focused, but really good education there. Went for my interview, and they made the offer for me to start the SDR program, which I know you know all about, right? You're essentially dialing for dollars. You're coming out of school, you're in the deep end of training and enablement, which honestly I really, really enjoyed. It's a lot, but other than that, you're just cutting your teeth, pounding the phone, setting up meetings, And it was probably the best learning experience ever. But, to answer your question, no. Technology sales, I would have sold anything. I didn't care. I just ended up, I got a little bit lucky and fortunate based on some relationships to end up at a great company like EMC.
Totally. We all did. And going back to the hockey thing, right? Like the hockey thing ran pretty deep at EMC too, which makes a big difference. Do you feel like I was the same way, Biggs? I didn't even have a computer when I graduated from Holy Cross. I used to write my papers in the computer lab. So when Shep was like, yeah, you're going to sell like these huge storage arrays, I was like, what the hell? But I did feel like there were some things that I brought to the table that helped me. Do you feel the same way? Like when you started the SA program, do you feel like you were somewhat prepared with some of your intangibles?
I did, and honestly, it goes back to that the meritocracy that sales brings. Having a scoreboard and something to shoot for is something that I've always liked. Like, I never wanted to be middle pack of, at the time, they literally tracked every Friday how many appointments you set for your field. If I wasn't top, it would eat me alive, right? And that's the competitive nature when you're in basically a boiler room type setup of a bunch of people in cubes dialing for their livelihood, all ex-athletes for the most part. It's a fun environment, and you always want to be on the top of the leaderboard. So it's like, that set me up, and I think my desire to always try to be top tier in whatever we're doing, that intangible, that competitive nature of me definitely helped me get off the ground in sales.
Yeah. Was Jimmy Mack there back in the day?
I worked for Jimmy Mack. Yep, Jimmy Mack and Ed Philippine.
Yep. That's who we named the podcast after, dude. What do you remember about those like first few months at EMC? You were drinking from a fire hose, basically, right?
Big time, man. So they had, I don't know if you ever ran across this lady, Helen Atkinson. So Helen Atkinson ran, you show up day one, it's what is a host? What is a server? What is a disk array? Dude, foreign language for me. No idea what they're even talking about. So week over week, we're getting trained on a product. We're getting trained on what it does for our customers. And at the same time, we're trying to set 25 meetings a week. So it was like week over week, it was so uncomfortable. But that also really, really helped, right? Because I don't believe you can get really good at anything being super comfortable. So, literally studying product and studying all the content Helen would give us to prepare for a fireside chat on Friday, where again, the fear of losing and more the fear of embarrassment, standing up in front of my peers and looking like a clown, that would it would stress me out. So you'd be forced to get really good at it and forced to put in the time. And, so the first 6 months was like that, dude. It was 6 months of pure uncomfortableness, which looking back, I'm glad I did it.
100%. You don't get good unless you're uncomfortable. So that's what it's all about. I look back, there's definitely there's things that I would probably change about my first year or two in my career. Like what are things that you would do over, you think, when you look back?
Early in my career, it would I think I would ask for more real world situational stuff. Meaning when I did it, right, 06, I went to the field of the EMC. Main kid, working in Boston. I go in front of John Hanlon. Wasn't married, didn't have any kids. He shipped me to Southern California. So I was like, all right. So I show up on the ground with basically, dude, I'm talking Google Maps, again, dating myself, printing them out every morning, going on as many sales calls as possible. I think I know what I'm doing. I don't know anything. I've never been on a real sales call before. So being a shadow and sitting in on what good looks like and figuring out what the best people do and tying myself to a field mentor, I would have done that. That would be the one thing I would do over again is I would tie myself to someone who would give me the time of day that I could learn from and make it a habitual thing every week, every month, whatever I could do just to learn from what they're doing. That would have really helped me kind of, expedite my learning curve once I was actually in the field.
Yeah, and I think I think I take that for granted, having started at a smaller company and having Lanigan, Allie Bliss, Kevin Laughlin, Shep, and the other thing is you don't just learn good habits, you also learn bad habits, and you're and if you're smart and you're self-aware, you recognize they do this really well, but they don't do this really well. I'm gonna take them kind of both lessons away from that person. That's good advice for our listeners: is grab find a high achiever, grab them, and build a relationship with them. So good. I'm curious to get your take on this, Biggs, because you went through the EMC program. We've had a ton of folks on here. Obviously, for us, we work with a lot of venture-backed, fast-growth software companies that are earlier stage. We do work with some big companies too, and we get a lot of kids that kind of come in and they're thinking, big company versus small company. They're also thinking about and I fight them on this, but they're like, well, this base is $5K higher, and I'm like, that doesn't matter, right? But there are things that do matter. So if you were working with one of our kids thinking about going into sales, how are you advising them on how to select a company, you think?
Yeah, good
if
question.
You can't hire them at Rubric.
Yeah. All right. Well, send me the good ones. I'm always hiring. The biggest thing that I would learn was really, we talked a little bit about EMC and some of the enablement and development. That I cannot stress enough. Going to somewhere where they're not just going to give you a manual, give you some videos, and then, hey, good luck. You really want to be enabled, right? Rubric, we are a development and enablement culture by design, right? We have people running our transformation team and our enablement team, a guy by the name of JP Poland, who he carried a bag. He not only a rep, he was a VP of sales, very successful, but he's lived in our day-to-day world. So having a team dedicated to making you better, especially when you're young in your career or new to sales, that cannot be overlooked. Right, a dedicated, regimented program that's going to make you good. It's the work, right? It's putting in that grassroots effort to get good at your craft that will make you good long term. If you walk into a company and that's not a core part of what they're doing or what they care about with employees, I wouldn't even look at them. Right, $5,000 in salary over that's nothing, right? I would care really about the founding team. Do they have a proven record of developing people throughout their sales in other areas? And then, all right, what does that transformation enablement team look like? Who is it? Who's it made up of? What's it look like week over week, month over month? That is so important when you're early in your career. And throughout, dude, honestly, it's still core to everything we do every single week here at Rubric. It does not stop.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of the industry we chose too. This thing is changing. This thing is changing every single day, right? Rubric is a phenomenal example of a company that's completely transformed their go-to-market and the products that they're selling and how they're positioning them. And you guys are a huge company, right? So if a huge company needs to be able to pivot quickly, you certainly do too as an individual. You know what I mean?
Totally. I came here 2017, dude. We were in a rock fight selling backup. Backup is the least sexy thing that nobody wants to talk about. It's critical to every company that's worth anything, right? All their critical assets need to be packed up. Our messaging now, data protection is core to what we do, but it's really about securing the data. The data is all that matters. But our product has evolved. And to your point, the days of getting a product training every Tuesday on, hey, here's the newer, bigger, faster disk drive that's coming out. Software is developing too quickly to even care about that stuff. You got to develop a core process and way to sell, and then learn the technology, right? If that process and foundation is strong, you can sell anything as your product continues to get better.
Yeah. We don't talk a lot about process on here, but I do think it's so important, right? It's just like sports, and you need a playbook, right? Because you can't, if you do, God forbid you lose a deal, you need to be able to look at a deal and go, well, here's what we did. We zigged when we should have zagged. We didn't do this thing that we say we're going to do in our process. So I'm really glad you brought that point up. For our audience, this is kind of a little nugget for them. What's your favorite interview question, Bakes, that you ask new hires?
My favorite one, honestly, is, walk me through a situation where you failed, whether it's in personal life. I interview a lot of people that are coming from a lot of different companies right now, right?
Yeah.
So we're interviewing and hiring. I kind of referenced it before. I want to know where people failed and then how do they respond? Because as much as people don't want to hear it, you're not going to be great at everything. You're not going to win every single deal, right? And we see a lot of people in our industry and in general, and the thing I harp on with my kids a lot, you're going to a lot more from losing. So I want to know what someone, did they lose a deal? Was there a sports failure? I want to know everything about how they overcame a negative situation. instead of beating their chest about the positive ones. That's a telltale for me. I want to know how people overcome things.
I love that, because it's also, by the way, a really good way to figure out if someone's accountable. Because if they're playing the victim in the story, right? The product sucked. My SE sucked. Whatever. Like, they're blaming the ice. It's like, hey, we're all playing on the same ice. So that's an awesome question to really figure out and dig in on someone. It's 2023 is going to be tough. It's just a harder ecosystem, a harder market. What do you think is going to make the cream rise to the top this year for the skill, on the skill side of selling, like the things that people can practice and get good at?
Yeah, dude, this is what we talk about every single week. I just hung up from my leadership call right before this call, dude. It's the skill side of things is having a point of view and doing some homework prior for a sales call, right? Our sellers or our prospects and our targets we are going after, they get called from 50 people a day, right? So taking your craft seriously, becoming a true professional in not only your pitch is one thing, but what is the value we bring to our clients, and differentiating early, having that skill and putting in the time to let a customer know that, hey, I did a lot of research on your business. Here's what I learned from your 10K. Here's what I know what your industry is doing. And going in with some kind of really good point of view that they can hopefully, in a best situation, Butts, they correct you. It spurs on really good dialogue. But what if you accomplish the fact that you put in some work, this meeting's important to them, that skill is something that will translate into, the next call and the next call after that, right? So it's really, it's grunt work. People tend to, hey, I got a first call. I'm going to show up on a first call pitch and just vomit what Rubric does. No one will be successful that way. My sellers are taught to go in and look, have a point of view on what the company does, what their industry does, solicit hopefully a very good dialogue. And if it takes us 20 sales calls to do a deal, I'm okay with that as long as it's a meaningful deal. Because in this economy, dude, we're not going to do a deal that's a nice to have. You got to tie yourself to a business problem. And that all starts with that first call and being prepared.
Yes, 100. The business problem, and you don't know the business problem unless you know the business. And this is like a really good talk track, because we talked about, like, when you first start, it's like you're learning so much about your company and like the industry and like what the products do. But like once you get settled into the career, your job is actually to become an expert in your customer's business more so than your own, right? Like, and that's what you're talking about, that research and like having a point of view, because you've earned the right to have a point of view because you've done the work. We met originally, Bakes, when you were, I believe that you were an individual contributor. Our friends out in, who I still talk to all the time, speaking of hockey, right? My guy Pinkham. And I guess, like, on the sales leadership side, I knew when I met you that you were going to be a high flyer, but like, what are some of the traits that, like, the great sales leaders that you've worked for have, like, that they all share?
Biggest thing here, dude, and I experienced it a little bit in my previous company, but since I've been at Rubric now, the thing that sticks out to me from my CEO Bipple, to my CRO Brian, all the way through the stack, dude, we have a very flat, there's no pecking order here, but the biggest trait, dude, is that transparency, whether it's really, really good or really, really bad. Transparency is so critical in any company that anyone who you're talking to is going to go work for, right? Because if you're not transparent, if you don't communicate well, and you're not on the up and up with all relevant updates, good or bad or indifferent, if you aren't overly transparent, people tend to make their own narrative. That narrative is usually a negative narrative, right? So if you are very transparent with, hey, the macroeconomic situation, there's a whole political landscape going on now. People aren't ignorant to this. They know what's going on. You got to translate into, hey, here's the headwinds we're going to face as a company. Hey, here's also the tailwinds, right? Because there's a lot of well-funded bad guys right now attacking every organization regardless of size. So for my organization, that's a very good thing to be going on in the world, as nasty as that sounds. Is it going to be easy? No. You're going to have to get really good at financial selling, really good at financial modeling, tying to that business problem. but that transparency of all things that go into your day to day, whether you're an IC, first, second, third line, it doesn't matter your title. That is so critical. And that's one thing I really enjoy about this place is I can text my CEO. I texted with him last night. I have a question. There's no sugarcoating. He'll shoot me straight.
Yeah. I don't know Bipple, but I know Brian really well, and that's his operating cadence. Like he tells you how it is, which is guys like me and you, the way we grew up. That's super important, right? Like we don't want any frosting on it. Just give it to us.
Well, dude, people aren't stupid, right? Like right. People know if you're getting sold a bag of goods. Like punch me in the mouth. If I'm not doing something good, tell me. If I'm doing something great, tell me how I can get better. People aren't stupid. The world's just, you gotta shoot it straight, good or bad.
Yeah. Going back to like that early career where you wish you kind of found a mentor, I'm sure you eventually did like find some folks that had a huge impact on you. Who's one you would highlight and what did you learn from that person?
Well, there's a couple that I still talk to on a regular basis. One that sticks out to me, and honestly, I bring him up is Gary Halloran. I think you know Gary Halloran, right?
Very well. Yep.
I almost went to work for Gary when I was in the doldrums of SDR land, cold calling and wanted to blow my brains out every single day, right? Like, do I go be a plumber? What the hell am I doing here? Like, every thought's going through my head at the time, 6 months out of college. Didn't go work for Gary at the time, but since then, he's always checked in. I respect the heck out of him because he started businesses. Every customer he's ever dealt with still has a very high respect level for Gary because, again, he's transparent. He always did what's right by the customer. And then the reason I mention him is like when I was leaving EMC to come here, that was not a small decision for me, right? I got 4 kids, very risk adverse, right? And I saw a really good opportunity here, and he was the first call I made, and he put things into perspective with me on, hey, I can stay down this path, and here would be all the good things. Here are some things to consider. Or I could take this new opportunity. And he kind of gave it to me unfiltered, good and bad, helped me weigh out the pros and cons. And I took a lot of what he said to heart. And it was a big reason why I did come over here. And it was, one of the best decisions ever. But he had so much more experience and history across technology. I really valued his opinion. And I knew he would give it to me straight. There was no agenda to keep me where I was. It was like, hey, if I'm you, here's your family situation, here's your career situation, here's the ups and downs. And I bounced it off him, and that was so key. Yep.
And I think it's safe to say you definitely made the right decision. And I think a lot of it, I think we share a trait in common, Bakes, that I love building teams. You love building teams. You got an opportunity to build out a kick-ass team in the Northeast at Rubric. How do you like? What's your approach to building a great sales team? What are some of the things that you try to do?
I try to keep it very simple. First of all, right? It's like I have an a-hole policy. I won't say it because we're on a podcast, but like that is the culture to me is honestly the most important thing because working in a toxic culture, not liking who you work with, not trusting who you work with, that just spirals out of control very quickly, right? And it's when I'm looking at individuals and building people, I want people with similar backgrounds, right? Like I know what Shift is doing is such an important aspect for so many people, both military backgrounds and athletes, because dude, the first thing I look for on a resume when I get it is I go right to, were they an athlete? And again, that could be my simplified brain working the way it does, but going back to what we started this conversation with is like, I want to build a team around people who are self-motivated. I call it, you got to have a motor, right? You got to have your own motor. I don't need to be kicking you in the butt every day to get up and EG, find a way into meetings. If I have to do that, we made a bad hire, and that costs my company money. So it's like when I'm building a team, I want people of similar backgrounds where applicable, self-driven, self-motivated, and then, the coachability and going back to that willingness to learn. I've seen and I've hired people, I've made bad hires where we try to insert our process or teach them, and it goes right back to their ways because it worked wherever they were. Those people inevitably don't make it, right? So the coachability aspect to try what we're teaching them, put it into play, embrace what we're trying to do, that is so important to our culture, right? Like, check your ego at the door, be coachable, and don't be an asshole. It's really that simple.
It is. It really is. And listen, there was a time, I think, for a short period of time where, like, leaders that said, well, I only want to hire athletes, and athletes kind of got this bad rap, like immediately tied to, like, oh, if it's an athlete, it's a bro, right? Like thinking of like frat people. And it's like, no, right? 50% of NCAA athletes are females. You start looking at like football and basketball. These are sports that are made up of a majority of people with diverse backgrounds, actually. So that I think that we've gotten over that hump. But there's a certain thing when somebody understands what it means to play for the name on the front of their jersey and not the back of their jersey. That makes a huge difference when they care about the person sitting next to them. That like it organically creates a really good culture. And I know the people you've hired, and I know you've built that culture out, and it's awesome.
Well, I also know too, Butts, like those people have lost at some point in their life. They have faced adversity. They've been cut from a team. They lost a big game. There was some kind of down point in their career. It's inevitable, right? And that is so important right now because the grass isn't always greener. A lot of people get impatient because, oh, I lost a deal or my territory changed. I'm going to go look somewhere else and jump. They've never faced that adversity. You're going to face adversity in sales. If not, you wouldn't get paid as well as you do, right? Yeah. You got to be able to take a loss on the chin, dust yourself off, and go find the next opportunity. Most athletes, all athletes, I will say, have felt that at some point in their career.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Even Bobby Butler has lost games and got cut from. I don't think he's got cut from teams, but
he probably hasn't got cut.
All right, dude. Last two questions, and I'm excited to hear your answer on both of them. But we always ask everybody, like, what is the one skill that makes you elite as a salesperson? Would you say?
As a salesperson, I think it's going back to that relentlessness that I expect every one of our sellers to have. And more importantly, being relentless to the point where you know when to walk away. And what I mean by that is we harp on our sales teams here that, yeah, we can go play in any customer right now based on where our product has evolved. That does not mean we are a fit in every single customer.
Yeah.
If timing's not right, you got to have enough common sense and you got to have enough respect for your time to walk away or qualify out, right? So you got to have enough EQ to read a situation, read an account where you don't go scorch the earth so you never get an at-bat when the timing's right. The timing's not always going to be right. The pain's not always going to be great enough to fund, especially in this market we're funding today. So you got to have enough intelligence to fight another day.
Yeah.
So it's like, be relentless, be on a dog on a bone with every opportunity until you know there's no meat on that bone.
Yep.
Respectfully bow out. Customers, I've never met a customer when we've bowed out or qualified out that, hey, I don't think we're a fit right now. I've never had a customer get mad at me. I've actually had customers lean in on that because they want to know why they're not a fit.
Right.
So again, it's the intelligence and having the self-respect to respect your time as a seller. Because there's nothing but opportunity out there in this market right now.
Yeah.
Wasting time in the wrong places is detriment, and you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing your company a disservice. That time management aspect, dude, of being an athlete again, spend your time effectively, maximize your time, but don't waste any time.
So the way I'd summarize like your elite skill is voracious qualification in or out. That's kind of what I'm hearing. And by the way, I think that is literally the most important skill you can have. And it's also like if you're in an account, you're not at the right level and you know that it's a fit and you know you can drive a ton of value. It's being relentless to say, hey, just because you're saying no to me doesn't mean that it's a no. Like I think this is a good fit for your organization, and I'm going to find out the person that needs to understand the value that we can bring too, right? So I love that.
The other thing I would just piggyback on that I think some of your younger audience needs to know is like be a resource hog. Meaning you're young in your career. There's a lot of people probably at your disposal that have been there, done that. I want boil back to what I do every day. I want all of my executive team and all my best technical assets on all my biggest deals. And I want them helping every single rep on my team. Because if we're not using them, someone else is. So again, be a resource hog. That's a tool in your tool chest. So go use that. That is a skill I will use everybody. I will take Bipple and Brian's entire calendar if I was allowed to.
Right.
All you're going to do is learn from them. Every time I hear Bipple talk or Brian talk, I take a tidbit, I add it into my repertoire, and I'll regurgitate that in the next conversation, right? Like, you learn from these people. So constantly learning and listening to people that are better than you or have more history than you, there's no downside in that.
Yep. Would you say, so the last question we ask is usually, I'm a big believer in professionalism, right? Like, I struggled initially in my career because I was angry about hockey being over. I had a brother playing in the NHL, and the epiphany that kind of saved my life was, just because I'm not a pro hockey player doesn't mean I'm not a pro. I am a pro sales professional. Like, this is what I'm going to be elite at. So what do you think, what does being a pro in sales mean to you? Is it some of that stuff you just talked about?
Yeah, dude, I think it's pretty simple, honestly. And the way I look at it is, being a pro in my craft or any craft you're doing is like, take the work very seriously and take pride in being the best you could possibly be. I don't care if I'm hooking up a sink, working for my own man. I want to be the best plumber. I don't care if I'm selling software. I want to be the best software salesperson. But you're not going to get to that level if you don't take pride in it, you don't practice, and you're not always learning, right? And then we already hit on this a couple times, dude. Like, being a pro to me is getting out of bed excited to do what you do. I don't need someone to kick me in the butt. I don't need someone to say, hey, time to get up. Let's have a good day today. I got to go make money for my giant family, right? I got 6 people under my roof. I'm self-motivated because I'm providing for my family, right? And if you don't have that, no one's ever going to light that fire if you can't light it yourself, right? So you got to be willing and eager to be the best at something. And then when you want to be the best at something, it doesn't just come. You got to practice, right? Put in the reps. It all comes down to practice and listening to other people.
100%. Dude, Ryan, thank you so much for joining, buddy. This was awesome. Really appreciate it, pal. Thank you.
You got it, man. That was a lot of fun, Butts. Good catching up, dude.
This wraps up this episode of Merchants of Change. If you enjoyed this episode, the most meaningful way to say thanks is to submit a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're interested in working with us, please come find us at www.shiftgroup.io.